Still got to fix a couple things. Going to do a recap of the round today. Okay, that should fix everything. My bride, man, got married almost 8 years ago. Okay. Hello. We're going to do a recap today of the games that were played in the U.S. Championship and U.S. Women's Championship, which started today. In fact, one of the rounds is still going, but it's going to be a draw. Get rid of that. Yeah, one of the games has been going for 6.5 hours or so. Or maybe 5.5 hours. Whatever's funnier. Hey guys, so I'll need to do markers. Unless we have a mod here. Okay, so we're going to look at the 12 games played today in the U.S. Championship and U.S. Women's Championship. First game we're going to look at, we'll look at the championship games first and the Women's Championship next. Okay, so Dominguez is white against Wesley. First game. They played an Italian, which is the style, 2 knights. Most super GMs don't play knight g5, especially Dominguez. This is all normal and boring. So yeah, one of the new wrinkles in these positions is white decides they're not worried about knight a5 getting the 2 bishops. So white doesn't play bishop b3 anymore for no reason. Just saves a tempo. Now knight a5 doesn't do anything because of bishop a2. Okay, so this is, considered about equal. Players still in their prep. You can tell by how much time they've taken. Then rook b1 seems like it's not prep. So now the players are on their own. But okay, nothing much is happening. Yeah, the engine prefers to take on b5 first, but knight e7's okay. So white grabs the center. The engine wants to play knight g6 here, although I guess black will be forced to sack a piece after d5, which is probably good because the bishop gets opened and the knights are here. So, but Wesley took instead, so that d5 would never happen. Then traded again, and then c6, which defends the pawn by discovery, as in the opera game when black played c6. And Engine says white's slightly better. It doesn't like queen d8. It wants black to play queen c7, keeping an eye on this pawn. But I guess Wesley literally didn't care because the knights attacked. Yeah, now he defended. So white's just better here because white has some targets. Thanks, Aaron's on Twitches. Thanks. Some targets here. Knight on e5 is pretty nice. Bishop a3 is annoying. So white's better here. Okay, and queen d3 gives away all of white's advantage. Queen d3 is a pretty natural move. Your rook can move over, and you stop black from playing knight f5 ever. But the Engine wants to take the knight and then play queen b1, which is not very obvious since that would like hang the d pawn. And somehow that's better for white. Although I don't know why. I guess I was thinking if you play bishop takes, I can play knight f5, but then I could play... Oh, you can't play rook takes e5 because knight e7 check wins the queen at the end. Okay. Yeah, I mean, nobody's going to play bishop takes knight here. So, okay, so queen d3. Now the game is just equal. White's not better anymore. They trade everything. Now they're repeating, always repeat. Then Dominguez plays for the win, but it's just equal. Queen e4 is fine. Queen takes e3 check is also a draw. Played rook a8 because if you take the pawn on e3, I can play rook d7. You can't defend the f pawn. And then Wesley kept attacking the rook. If the rook moves away, we just keep attacking it. The rook has nowhere to hide. So eventually white's going to have to do this, which is pretty drawn. Then they repeated so they could get to a draw. I think based on what I saw today, draw offers aren't allowed. The game has to end in stalemate or by repetition. So when the game is obviously drawn, the players find a way to repeat moves because they're not allowed to agree to a draw. I think that's the rules. Hello. Anyway, thanks for supporting the stream to our subscriber. Go our subscriber. Go Aaron's on Twitches. Okay, so next game was Shankly. Ridiculous. Hello. Once we get to the U.S. Women's Championship, the games will start being interesting. Okay, so Shankland got an advantage and threw it all away due to lack of talent. Shankland's white against a wonder. It's a wonder Sam keeps playing in the tournament. Oh, snap. They asked a wonder, they said, a wonder, why do you play in the U.S. Championship? And he said, bread. Okay, so castles. So they transpose into some semi-Tarash Catalan type position. Still theory. Yeah, this position looks like Magnus's game with with Hans last year, the famous game 2 years ago, whatever it was. Okay, knight c2. Engine says it's about equal. Says black is slightly worse. White has the two bishops, and black's pawn structure isn't as good. Okay, still about equal. White's a little bit better. The engine doesn't like rook to e8. It wants to play bishop f5, attacking the rook. It says that's about equal. Now it says white's better if white plays incredible move. Bishop takes a7. The idea is if the knight takes, then rook takes b7 is good. And if black plays b5, attacking the queen, we take, queen takes, and after queen takes, knight takes b6. White's down a piece, but white's better with the pass pawn on the b file, and excuse me, the other pass pawn coming to help. So the engine much prefers white after bishop takes a7, which looks like a crazy move. Looks like rook a8 is good, but it's not. Probably because of bishop b6. Okay, so he played rook d2, which is also good. b6 is good. Rook d1 is good. Bishop f5, it says, is a small mistake. It says he should take on d5, and or play bishop g4, and he's only slightly worse. In either case, c5 is a good move. And in this position, Shankland made a tactical error, which threw all of his advantage away. It says he should just play bishop g2, trade rooks on the d file, and white has tremendous pressure against black's queen side. But Sam went for the immediate win with g4, recommended by Matt Larson. And the idea is, if the bishop goes to h7 or makes a pit stop on g6 first, and then after h5 goes to h7, then the king can't escape. So queen takes c6 is winning. And bishop takes c6, I guess, because there's a back rank mate after all the pieces are traded on c6. So black can't go here, and black can't go here. Black can't go to any of these squares. Black can't go here. And black doesn't want to go here or here. So, Shankland was like, this is good for me. And it is good for him, except for one thing. And that one thing is a wonder doesn't move his bishop. And Shankland must have thought it was a dream. And to explain that joke to you, since very few of you got it, this is no joke. A wonder has a brother, and his brother's name is a dream. Can't make that up. And he's about 1900, 2000, but I think he quit chess a long time ago. Anyway, don't forget that. Yeah, the truth hurts. Let's see. How come nobody's banned this person? Terrible. Guy's trying to get banned for like 2 minutes. I wasn't looking at the chat. Okay. Yeah, my lectures are great. Anyway, a wonder who had just seen the movie Blazing Saddles said, "Excuse me while I whip this out," and played knight d4, after which Shankland was screaming. Now, black is threatening both bishops fatals. And now the position's just to draw. So he took the knight. Rook takes d5. He took on f5. If he plays bishop b6, which is probably what Shankland had calculated, he forgot that after takes, black plays bishop c2 and gets his exchange back. And then it's just a draw. So he played takes, and they traded everything. And then he sacrificed his rook for perpetual, his threatening mate. So then there's perpetual check. And draw by reputation. So that was a good game where Shankland missed a chance to be better and allowed immediate equalization with knight d4, which a wonder did not miss. And so forth. How's the Georgia life? Good, good. We're going to make sure Kamala is president again. Or that Trump isn't president again. How Trump gets one vote is totally shocking to me. That's the world that I live in. Bunch of dummies. Okay, next game is the game you've all been waiting for. Let me do a marker. I can't spell game right. Cleavon Little is correct. Yeah. Jordan has a watch streak. I don't know why that's good, but it must be. Okay, so this is the game Hans Niemann versus Fabiano Caruana. Yeah, we always have 3 screens up, and the screen in front of me is my account. The screen to my left is Karen's account, and my account is also on the screen to the right, as well as the YouTube channel that is following also. Welcome to Go Ben. Thanks, Anti-Podino. Good job. Yeah, I think if what's her name? Who's his wife? Melania. If she's allowed to vote, I don't think she'll vote for Trump. Not sure she's allowed to vote. I don't think Trump is allowed to vote because he's a convicted felon. So Trump can't vote for himself. And so forth. Anyway, it sounds funny. Go Bernie Sanders. Go to the old folks' home. Oh, snap. Bernie Sanders is so old that in a couple of years he can run for president again. That's how old he is. Okay, so this is Hans versus Fabi. Hans got the better of the opening. They played in Italian, which is Hans' specialty with white. It's sort of boring. Then Fabi made interesting move, Queen f6. All part of his prep, of course. b4, which is reasonable. a4, threatening a5. White gets a big space advantage on the queen's side. Bishop e3, thwarting the good bishop on b6. And white has a nice advantage, I think. Black's queen is sort of silly, I think, on f6. So here the engine wants to play g5 at some point, but Fabi never did. Knight f4 is okay. Bishop g4 is playable. These is all okay. Just better for white. Now, Hans followed 2 of my rules, so I thought he was going to win. I mean, Hans made a move where it follows 2 of my rules. Although, I guess, to be fair, the rule always follows another rule, so it always follows 2 rules. He always played bishop f1. Okay, and the engine says black has to play g5, and black's position is fine. But Fabi castled, which the engine says is bad. And white has more than one way to get an advantage now, but he played rook c1, which is fine. Again, black should play g5, played knight e6. Now white has a very strong position. He played g4. And in this position, Hans made a mistake, which threw away most of his advantage. And if you're capable of seeing the times on the clock on your stream, Fabi has a lot less time than Hans. So Hans wants to keep the tension and not do anything forcing, but he did something forcing that basically forced black into equality. What he should have done is played h4, threatening g5, trapping the queen. And the engine says white is plus 1.3 if he plays h4 with the idea of g5. Slowly but surely. And don't call him Shirley. Okay, but Hans played knight takes e5, which is super complicated. But if Fabi can walk the tightrope, then he can draw the game. So he takes, queen, if it goes to h4, would get trapped by knight f3. So he has to take, knight f3. And now if Fabi plays queen d6, we can take on d6, pawn takes, then the bishop on b6 is hanging. So you can't do that. And if you play queen f6, then white plays e5, and the queen is trapped. So Fabi has to take on e4. Hans wins his piece back, and Hans has two threats. Well, he's not threatening the pawn because it's defended, although sort of threatening it because the knight would be hanging at the end of that. And white has two bishops. And black only has one move that equalizes, and Fabi found it even with little time on his clock. He thought 5 minutes, rook a d8. And the difference between rook a d8 and rook f d8 happens in the variation where white plays knight to d4, which is what Hans played. Queen f4. And now in this position, Hans took on a5. If Hans takes on e6, black is actually winning now because black played the correct rook to d8. So now black has pressure on the queen and on the bishop and on the f file. And this is very strong for black because black can play c5. It's pinned. And then if you take, and white's in a lot of trouble. e5 is coming and takes, and f2 is weak when the bishop disappears. Okay, so Hans didn't do that. After queen f4, Hans took the pawn on a5, and then b6 attacking the bishop. Then they traded. Black's threatening knight f3 check, so we have to take it. And he's forking the pieces. So queen e2, attacking the knight. Now black's up a pawn, but this pawn is hanging. Now the commentators were expecting rook takes c7, threatening queen takes f8 check, and maybe Fabi with a minute and a half would miss that, except for one thing. And after rook takes c7, rook a8, the engine says it's equal. But he played queen c7. Then black played the best move by far, h5, putting tremendous pressure on g4. And then Hans tried to win the pawn. Fabi said no. And then brought his rook around and his king around. He didn't want to allow rook e1 pinning his bishop or bishop f3 first. So he played here. And then defended his pawn. And Hans has a little something, but it's not enough to win. These moves are all good. And Fabi made the time control when he played king f7. And white doesn't have enough pressure to win here. Well, the white is better. Hans played f3, showing that he would not win. Then Hans played the tricky bishop f7. The idea is if bishop takes b5, rook d5 attacks the bishop and threatens rook h5 mate. So Fabi didn't fall for that. Always play bishop f1. Both sides played bishop f1 this game. Both sides played f3 and f6. So the game was obviously drawn. King f2. Rook f8, the best move. If the bishop takes the pawn, we run into rook d5 again. And bishop h3 is bad. because you're not putting pressure on this pawn here. When I say bad, it's still a draw, but better for white. So this is an immediate draw, this rook and pawn endgame. And if Hans takes on b6, king h5 is a draw. So now white wins a pawn, but black has too much compensation. And plays g6. Takes. At some point, black is going to play rook here and f5 checkmate, or just play f5 check and attack the f pawn. So Hans decided to trade down to the drawn ending. And they're not allowed to agree to a draw, so they played to stalemate. So that was a pretty good game. In fact, all the games of the U.S. Championship, the players played between 95 and 100. So probably we'll see something on Twitter soon from Kramnik about the extensive cheating in the event with all the U.S. Championship players playing so well. Very high cap scores. Okay, speaking of high cap score, okay, let's do a marker. Okay, so this is Levan Aronian versus Sam Sevian, both of Armenian descent, although Aronian was born in Armenia and lived there most of his life. He also lived in other European countries, but he played for Armenia. And then about 6 years ago, he started playing for the U.S. And Sam Sevian's always played for the U.S., as far as I know. And their game was almost all prep. It was a French, Tarish variation. Levan was playing extremely quickly with white. And this is all just their prep. Exchange sacrifice, always sack the exchange. At b3 to play bishop a3. White has the two bishops and the dark squares. Both sides were playing quickly, but especially Levan. Levan played the whole game quickly because he knew the whole game. Yeah, in this position, black only has one good move, and Sam found it. And I don't think you can find it unless you already know the position. The best move is rook d8. White wants to play queen c5 and give checkmate on e7. And rook d8's a good move. And then after queen c5, you play knight d5. And then after it's captured, you play queen f6, defending mate and attacking the rook and attacking the bishop on d5 and attacking the knight on f3. So black has a lot of threats. And, I mean, this is just a draw, but I think both players already knew that. Levan played bishop c6 check with hardly any thought at all. And now they repeat moves. Bishop d7 loses to queen takes pawn check. But rook d7 threatens the knight and the rook. So white has to give this perpetual. And if black plays queen d8, after queen takes e4, the engine says white is better. So they repeated this way. And I think both sides knew this position before the game started. Although Sam thought a little bit more than Levan did. And Levan, hoped that Sam didn't know this variation and he would mess up. But Sam didn't mess up. Anyway, people thought the players would draw because they went out to breakfast together. And Levan asked Sam, what are you going to have? And he said, I do not like green eggs and ham. I'm not sure what he ordered, but he didn't order that. And when I go to a restaurant, everybody's ordering that. So I was really surprised. So, and so forth. Yeah, that's correct. 747, how old are you? That plane's from 50 years ago. You didn't understand it? He doesn't like green eggs and ham, Sam I am? Man, guys are dumber than I thought. And that's saying something, because you can't be dumber than I think. Green eggs and ham is older still. That's right. Bonarici needs to go into the home. He's too confused to be on the internet. Somebody give Bonarici some medicine. You're already at the home? God damn. My home with my cat. Crazy cat guy. Yeah. Okay, let's go to the next game. This was Ray Robson versus Gregory Oparin. Oparin plays with a certain style. I would say Oparin style. Oparin style. Hey, sexy Oparin. Oparin style. Okay, and Ray Robson's white. Gregory Oparin is not only one of the players in the tournament, but he also works with Fabiano Caruana, helping him prepare his openings and stuff. And both of those players will be playing in the U.S. Masters in Charlotte Thanksgiving weekend. So if you want to see a lot of the best players in the U.S., that's a good tournament to go to and play in some other section or watch or, something. Get autographs, selfies. Okay, so they played a Nimzo Indian. I finished my Nimzo Indian course a few days ago. It's be available for purchase on Chessable in about 17 days. Okay, and in my course, I give B6 as move 4 against most reasonable tries, which Black eventually did. Eventually, Black played B6, this position, and decided the bishop on B7 didn't have a big future, so he played bishop A6 to trade off a lot of pieces and equalize. So White's slightly better. White has a better center, but Black has no weaknesses. And weak C pawn on the half open file here, weak A pawn. So Black has chances also. White gets rid of his weak C pawn. The engine says it's equal now. The engine actually prefers rook F to C8 to rook A to C8. But you have to understand something is when you move a rook to a square and the other rook could have gone there, it's always the wrong rook. That's just the way life is. Okay, I think the engine slightly prefers knight e7 or knight e8 to e5, but e5 is still playable. Then knight d4 is correct. Knight takes e2, and knight to e8. The knight wants to go to d6. Engine says white is slightly better. Thanks the Bubbas, you're the best. Yeah, the engine says white's better here, but since Black has the C file and a blockade, should be able to draw. H5 is good because you set up perpetual checks later with H4 and Queen H3, and you get love for your king, so that's good. F5 is a crazy move, which I would never consider, but it turns out it's okay, but it's not a move I would play. Black was in time trouble and wanted to get some counterplay, I guess. And then a brilliant move was made this game. Here, the best move for white, which very few people would find, is King H1. Always retreat. And you may wonder, why is King H1 the best move? Well, you're going to find out. White played the more obvious queen e2, thinking if queen f4 check, I can play g3 or king h1. So what's the difference? The difference is black has a move that gives him immediate equality, which he found even in time trouble with 11 minutes to make 10 moves, which is rook c1. And this ensures the draw immediately because we get to trade rooks and white's king is too open to win. Then he played another excellent move, king f8. Doesn't want queen takes to be with check, which white does anyway, but black's king gets to d7. And since black is always threatening to take on a3, have a passed a pawn, these pawns aren't dangerous as far as queening. White actually has no winning chances here. So white ended up winning the e pawn, but black's always going to take here or give perpetual. So no winning chances. Always repeat. Yeah. And like this pawn is the best pawn on the board because that might actually queen. This pawn's not queening. These pawns aren't queening. The king is open, so black has a lot of perpetual checks too. White threatens mate. Black has plenty of checks. And the problem is white doesn't want to move the king up and after check, king c5 or something because I take and king e7. Black has winning chances. And then draw was agreed because this pawn's too strong. And the king is getting checked forever and so forth. So that was a very good game where white had a slight advantage and could have gone maybe for a clear advantage if he had played king h1 at some point. But he missed rook c1, I think, in time trouble. And black was able to draw pretty easily for him. Very high-level game. Okay, and the last game, which was the first game to finish, game 6. This is Mishra versus Christopher Yu, two of the younger players in the tournament. I think they're the two youngest. Christopher Yu is the reigning U.S. junior champion. He won last year, or this year. He won at some point. It was this year. And so forth. Okay, so Mishra's white. Played a Petrov. Still theory. This was a new idea about 30 years ago. The idea is if you take, you play d5 attacking the bishop. Bishop goes back to d3, then e4 with a fork. So taking doesn't win a piece. So white took on e5. Both players were blitzing out their moves. Threatens mate. Black was just playing instantly every move. And according to the gawking rabble, bishop c5 is a novelty that Christopher had prepared for the game. Previous to that, bishop e5 was played. Bishop d3 is the best. White wants to castle and, get some attack against the king and the queen. And this was all played very quickly by Christopher. This ending seems difficult for black, but Christopher didn't have any trouble. Could be it's still in his preparation. I don't know. Yeah, and this is a nice move. So now if you take the knight, I take this knight. So you can't win the c-pawn. Then this is pretty drawn. Again, you're not allowed to agree to a draw, so they had to repeat moves. And then this is the third repetition. So draw by reputation. So again, Christopher Yu had most of that game worked out beforehand. with his bishop c5 novelty, and he was slightly worse, but nothing serious, and he equalized pretty easily. So back to the drawing board for Mishra. So U.S. Championship, 6 games, and all 6 games ended in draws, and they were all played where both sides' cap score was 95 or better, and in some cases 98 or better, and in one case 99 or better. So very well played games. I don't know if anybody had a winning position. Shankland was much better, and Hans was much better. Maybe Hans was winning if like 2 engines played. Maybe. Do you know NM Caleb Demby from St. Louis? I do. The Razaman is posting some game. That looks like Feingold Scherzer from about 30 years ago. The reason it looks like it is it's Feingold Scherzer from about 30 years ago. Yeah, it was around 1993, so it might have been 31 years ago. Yeah, that was a nice game that I played, although the engine didn't like it. I thought I played great when the game ended, and the engine's like, you suck. But yeah, that was like 31 years ago. Yeah, I knew it was in Chicago. Yeah, 93 I wasn't sure about, but I could have told you it was Chicago, because I knew that. Now, what's the excuse that you people have who are watching my stream that you don't remember games you played 31 years ago? I want to see the list of excuses. I forgot to turn the light on, which I never do. I've never forgotten to turn the light on. So the stream should be slightly darker than it used to be normally, and now it won't be slightly darker, it'll be normal. We weren't alive. What kind of excuse is that? Now, I don't know why I remember chess games. And if you ask me about correlation or causation, I don't think I remember chess games and therefore I'm good at chess. I think it's I'm good at chess, therefore I remember chess games. Because when I wasn't good at chess, which was many years, I remember nothing. So I don't know. The truth hurts. It's funny because they're having the Alex Scherzer Memorial tournament in about 3 weeks in Virginia, suburban DC. But it's for players who have been 2,200 or above U.S. chess. So lots of grandmasters and IMs are playing. Okay, now we'll look at the women's games, which were not as well played, but have decisive results. So that's good, because every game being a draw isn't the most exciting. Source me. That's right, Moose. Very good. Yeah, this is how you can memorize a game because the moves made sense. So if you told me to memorize those games that we just looked at, I could do it, but you didn't tell me to do it, so I wasn't thinking about it. And yet, I could probably just show you those games from memory, the ones we just looked at, which I'm sure you can also do. Probably nobody watching could name all 6 games. Like, who was playing? You're like, who was playing those games? And some of you still don't know the results, even though they were all the same. Oh, snap. Who was playing? That's right. He was on first. Yeah, it's called the internet. So when you watch YouTube chat, it's always terrible. You came for the belittlement, you came to the right stream. Be belittled. Okay, this game is between Nazi Paikidze and Begum Tokhirjonova, and there was some friction before the game because Nazi thought her opponent's name was Begin and thought that she was related to Menachem Begin, and since her name is Nazi, that didn't go over too well, but it turned out it's Begum, not Begin, so there was no problem. In the Olympiad, Nazi had a big problem a few years ago when she played Zhu Wenjun. Anyway, that's beside the point. And that's like 2 jokes. Let's see. Wait, I got to look at this game. Knight BD7, Bishop F1. That looks like my game with, what's his name? Hikaru Nakamura from Cherry Hill, New Jersey, U.S. Open, round 7. What year was that? 2007? I'm going to say 2007, but I could be a year off. But it was round 7. That's pretty good to remember that. Or wait, maybe it was round 8. Oh, it might have been round 8. I was 6-0. Then he lost to Samutue. I don't know if it was round 7 or 8. I drew Samutue and then Hikaru and then Golko, but I don't remember if I played Samutue or Hikaru first. Let's see, I was black, white. So probably it's round 8. I probably got black against Samutue, white against Hikaru, and black against Golko. So 2007, Cherry Hill, New Jersey, U.S. Open, round 8. How did I do? Anybody? Good catch with the round 8. Yeah, I thought it was 7, but I was like, wait a minute. And the reason I played Hikaru, I had more points than he did because he lost to Samutue in round 6 or something. Or, yeah, I think in round 6 he lost to Samutue. I was in first place the whole tournament because I was 6-0, and then I drew my last 3 to tie for first. Yeah, that was a crazy game. My game with the card was really interesting. Okay, so here's Nazi versus Tokhirjonova. Nazi has white, or as Yasser would say, Naji. Okay, so this is slightly better for white. You know, it's an opening. Not super interesting yet. So white's slightly better. Yeah, here white made a move I don't understand. So there's 2 possibilities. And I'm not saying which one's right, because I don't know which one's right. Either Nazi doesn't understand chess, or I don't understand chess. And when I say chess, I mean this position. I would never, ever, ever, ever consider playing bishop takes knight. That wouldn't occur to me. My bishop's better than the knight. I would play knight e5, and then, you know, I'd kick the knight out later if I had to, but I probably don't have to. And I could take the knight later if I have to, but I'm not giving my bishop away. So I don't like this move. This gives away any advantage white had. Then here, Tokhirjonova played excellent move, knight f6, very good. And this position's about equal now. a5 is good. And this is just about equal. Nobody's really better here. Okay, so we got equal position. Black has the 2 bishops. Black has the Vatels. Now in this position, or white doesn't have the Vatels. In this position, the engine wants to play knight g4, because if you take the knight, I can take this knight. But I like what Begum did better. It was just Begum to be played. Queen b8 with threatening h2. Then she took, and this is much better for black. Black's bishop is better than White's bishop. Black has attacking chances on the king side. Queen g5 is a bad move. a4 is good. So basically, Nazi's getting outplayed this game. Her position's Nazi good. Nazi good. a3 is not the best move. You should play a4 if you're not going to take back. So now Black is close to winning or winning. Black's a pawn up and White's playing for tricks. Okay, now White's getting some counterplay. Stopping rook b8. Knight takes e4 is a blunder that loses the game. But, okay, she was in time trouble. They both had 3 minutes. She should just recapture on g4, and Black is probably winning. Now Black is incredibly winning after knight e4. That opens up the latent potential of the bishop, which now becomes actualized potential. And you would understand the difference if you had more than an 8th grade education. Okay, so rook f5 is a mistake. She should play knight takes knight. But rook f5 still wins. And then here, she should take with the rook on f6. And she took with the queen, which is actually the worst way to take. And that's because you're lining up the queen with the bishop. Now, Nazi correctly played queen g3, and White's threatening d5, unleashing the latent potential of her bishop, which then becomes actualized potential. Okay, so she played bishop d5, hg. Now White's like almost in the drawing zone, almost. And here White played rook e3, which is a mistake. It's a rook e3 mistake. It's a rookie mistake. Rook e3 mistake. Should play bishop c1, always retreat. Queen g5, excellent, threatening rook g4. And this ending's winning for Black because, frankly, White's pawns are delicious. Then queen h4 is a brilliant move, threatening mate. So White has to trade. Black's up a pawn. Black has 3-1. Black has the great bishop. White's king is under mating attack. Rook here, bishop here first. So White played f3, never play f3. Now it's 3 pawns to 1, Vatals. And the game ended relatively quickly with, basically White not resigning for some reason. And then sack the exchange because bishop d7 is going to be checkmate. Then White resigned because after king g3, f4 check. So that was a game where White was a tiny little better out of the opening. Then Black outplayed White and Black was better. And the question was Black much better or winning the rest of the game? For some of it, Black was much better. And for some of it, Black was winning. And then White just didn't resign the last 15 moves. Played on for no reason. If you don't agree with that, you could call that propaganda. What kind of propaganda? I don't know. Maybe Nazi propaganda? You don't like that? Okay, Paikidze propaganda. That's alliterative. So there you go. Any opinion about Faustino Oro? He's pretty good. That's my opinion. Rook e3 mistake. That's right. He often says Atusha instead of Atusa. Who, me or Morozevich? What? We want Simpsons propaganda. Okay, so that was not so bad. Okay, now we have Atusa versus Atusha. This game was the highest cap score in the U.S. Women's Championship this round. This is Paikidze, who is married to Hikaru Nakamura, and Irina Krush, who is not married to Hikaru Nakamura. Okay, they played a Sicilian, which is the style. William Shatner's favorite opening. Okay, and white's slightly better because it's a consicilian. It's sort of boring. Nothing interesting's happening. White has more space. And a4 is a mistake. The engine wants to play knight takes c6. And now Krush equalizes by playing d5. Now white has to play accurately to equalize, which she didn't do exactly. She took on e5, which is okay. And this is just very slightly better for black, but it's a draw. All the pieces are getting traded. But okay, you'd rather have black in this position because white has the weaker pawns. But it's just a draw. So black wins a pawn, but it's of no consequence. And this is just a drawn position with the a pawn. It's the worst pawn for black to have to try to win. And this is just a dead draw. There's no winning chances. Threatening mate. Yeah, and it's important to not take the rook because that would be a lost position after king takes. But now g6 draws and takes draws, so obviously both players knew. And then, see, Krush is a professional. Unlike Hans, who played king here, king here, king here, king here, and stalemated Fabi, she just played g4. Because not allowed to agree to a draw, and now the game is drawn by insufficient mating material. And, if you're not... Man, can I make this joke? Jesus Christ. God damn. I don't know. When usually I think I can't make a joke, that means I really can't make it. But I'm considering it. Man, this is a tough one. Am I going to get in trouble if I make this joke? Damn, good. Pat is correct. All right, I won't make the joke, but I'll tell you what the joke was that I would have made. I was going to say there's no mating material because this tournament's not LGBTQ friendly and these two women are playing. So that's the joke I was going to make, but I won't make that because I don't want to get in trouble. Oh, snap. Oh, wait. What do you think, Pat? Should I have made that joke or no? Chess Chopin says yes. Chopin was my mom's favorite composer, and she went to Père Lachaise in Paris and got pictures of his grave. That was much tamer than I thought. Good, good. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. That joke was funny to MAGA. Not sure you wanted that. Well, I was basically making fun of MAGA. So, I thought it was funny for everybody. Hi, Guillermo. Yeah, Faustino's great, which I already said, but he's still great. How do you misspell MAGA? Terrible. All right, let's go on. Let's go on, and we'll look at some other games. Yeah, before the game, somebody told me that Megan Lee was not going to lose to Jennifer Yu. And I said, Megan Lee? Ridiculous. What am I doing? Marker. I can't remember stuff because I'm old. Is this game 9? I think so. All right, let's go. Megan Lee's white, Jennifer Yu's black. Played a Sicilian dragon, sort of a Nightorf dragon. Dragendorf, which basically loses for black. Yeah, this is already terrible for black. Okay, now here Megan made a move I don't understand, and I'll never understand it. She thought a while, and she played knight b3. And I'm thinking, black played knight b6 to play knight c4, then bishop takes, pawn takes. Why would you want your knight on b3 to go back to d4? So white should just play h5 here, and I think strategically white's already winning. And Jennifer Yu's playing instantly, so she's just playing a bad opening, trying to get a crazy position and outplay her opponent, which is exactly what happened. So taking a page out of Carissa Yip's book. Okay, so I don't understand knight b3. White's still better, even though white played knight b3, knight d4. Still better for white. Okay, this is all good for white. White's doing great. Yeah, and here white started losing the thread. F4 is the best move. Queen e3 is okay. And then bishop takes e5. Again, sometimes moves are made that I would never consider. And at the risk of saying something I shouldn't say, my understanding of chess is better than Megan Lee's. The other time I made this joke, it was not better than the person who did it. I'm not better than Nazi Paikidze now. I was at my prime. Now I can't play at all. But bishop takes knight isn't a chess move. You don't play moves like that. You don't give up the dark squares of the two bishops. Now black's actually better. White has no attack now. And if white ever prosecutes, then we take on f4 and we open up the diagonal for the bishop. So white basically can't open the king side now. The b file is open, and we have two bishops against two knights. So now black is slightly better, if anyone. That's also a bad move. Yeah, now white's basically losing. That's a blunder also. Helping black set up the b file attack. Yeah, and now black's threatening bishop b4. Always play bishop f8. So black went from much worse to winning in like 5 moves. Yeah, this is just hopeless for white. Or so I thought. Threatening rook a5. Yeah, very good play by Jennifer. Yeah, I mean, black's just winning. White's king is under tremendous pressure. So this is funny. c4 doesn't threaten the queen because this is pinned. So Jennifer just moves the rook back, which is funny. And this is actually a mistake, letting white get counterplay with the c pawn. Black should have played queen c5, queen e3, defending c5. And black is still winning, but now it's close. Then here, black played rook c8, which is just double question mark. Any move is good for black. Queen d5 is good. King g7, getting off the back rank. And she was in time trouble here. This is move 40. I mean, after rook c8, obviously white plays queen takes a6. So what kind of move was rook c8? That just lost a tempo and a pawn. And after this, it's possible when she played rook c8, she missed this move. And that's why she played rook c8. She didn't see queen a5. And if you take the pawn, queen a8 check wins the rook. And now they just have to repeat moves. If black doesn't repeat, black's going to lose to the c pawn. So black was winning for about half that game. Then black gave away a lot of her advantage. Then she gave all of her advantage away when she played rook c8. So, Megan Lee, ridiculous. Good job for Megan not giving up, finding the best defense, and the last move of time control, Jennifer making a big mistake, costing her half a point. Okay, next game. Go ACR Poker. Okay, so next game is Anna Zatonskih versus Rose Atwell. You might know Rose from Twitter. She posts 2 or 3 times a day, every day, mainly about her chess games. Like, I played this guy and I lost, played that guy and I won, etc. Sometimes she puts diagrams in. Okay, so Anna Zatonskih's white. Rose was playing quite quickly. Would a Rose by any other name have such a position? The answer is fries. Anna, as per usual, was never moving, as is her style. And the position's equal. Nobody's better here. Now it looks like a Ruy Lopez with G3 happening. Pawn structure similar. C4 is excellent pawn sacrifice, which isn't really a pawn sacrifice, but it's really good. Yeah, now if you play queen c4, I play knight c5, pressuring here and threatening bishop a6. So now the engine says black is better. It says knight h4 is a mistake. Now black is much better. Yeah, and bishop a6 is coming. The e4 pawn is weak. White's pieces are discombobulated. Very good position for black. And rook c8's a mistake. Bishop b4 is better, attacking the rook. And that's a big mistake. Again, sometimes these players make moves that I would never consider. I'm not giving up my bishop for this knight. So bishop b2 is just a terrible move. And then I don't know why she didn't take the bishop, but okay, her move's okay. Yeah, and this is just terrible for white. Black having all the dark squares. Okay, so black's better here. Black wins a pawn. And in this position, black played really nice sacrifice, which was unnecessary. Black can play knight d7 and be equal. But I like this piece sacrifice. If you take with the queen, the rook is hanging on c4. You have to take with the king. And then queen e6, and in this position, Zatonskih blundered. But the idea is we're attacking the rook, and if the rook takes the rook, which is the right move, we throw in knight g4 check. And I think white has to be careful here, because white's king is going on a journey. King g1, rook takes, queen b6 check is coming. And white's king is, just very, very badly placed. The engine says it's a perpetual. It says black doesn't have anything better than just repeating moves. Okay, so that's how the game should have ended, like 2 engines were playing. But instead, after queen e6, white blundered, and you will know Rose Atwell's name is the Lord when you see what she did. Now black is winning, and what she did was very nice, very easy to miss. Zatonskih only 3.5 minutes on her clock to make 12 moves. So this is an easy tactic to miss. Black sacrifices the exchange, always sacrifice the exchange, and now black wins in 1 move, which is the move that she played. And there were reports from the tournament that after playing this move, Rose looked at her opponent and said, "Gotcha, bitch." But I don't think that she did. I think that's made up internet nonsense. I don't believe it. That's right, everybody who got the right answer. Rook d2 check. God damn. So it's funny because if you take knight check and then take the knight, queen d6 check wins the rook. Yeah, if you play king takes, then queen d6 check wins the rook here. So white played there, And now black is winning because white's king is frankly ridiculous. And white's just lost. Queen D1's a nice touch. Yeah, white's king is just getting crushed. Knight H2 is nice to play knight G4 check. Or queen F1 check. Now we're threatening queen F2 mate. And if you play rook C2, knight C2 wins your rook. And if you play rook F3, knight H2 wins your rook. Then she resigned because king G1, queen here mate. Also important, after rook C2, I don't just take the rook. I take the knight with check first, then I take the rook. So it's even worse than it seems. So very, very nice game from Rose. Very nice tactical, outplaying her opponent in time trouble, and a big upset with former four-time U.S. champion Anna Zatonskih losing to somebody who got there in the wild card. Thanks, Big Daddy, for the sub, and more importantly, thanks for the 1 bit. I finished Cry Like a Grandmaster. It took me 3 days. It took you 3 days? What? The book, it takes like 10 seconds to read the book. When is volume 2 coming out? Whenever the guy puts out volume 2. Whomever that guy is. Shouldn't take you 3 days to read that book. It should take 3 minutes. Pat, back me up. It doesn't take 3 days to read that book. It took 3 minutes. Haha, I was joking. There you go. Yeah, 3 minutes is more likely. Anyway, good for Rose. Cover to cover, 2 minutes. Yeah. Okay, now for the person who's going to win the tournament, and that's Carissa Yip. The chances of Carissa Yip winning the tournament are at least 100%, possibly more. I'm talking to top scientists now. And Matt Larson replied with at least 100%. He agreed. Okay, so they transpose into a Tarish. Then not knight takes, which looked like Shankland's game, but takes. And this is a main line. And the old main line is knight d5, queen d8, knight d2 from 50 years ago. This is also considered about equal. So white's slightly better, but not much. This ending should be a draw, but black has to play very precisely. So in this position, the best move, surprisingly, is d3. And that gives equality according to the engine. After rook e7, now white's much better. Put it in h. Bishop e6 is correct. And then knight e1's really strong. You open up the bishop, and the knight's coming to blockade at d3, and maybe later f4 or c5. So now white is close to winning strategically. And that move just loses. And if you take on c6 and black takes on h3, black is okay. But white just plays h4, and all these pawns are weak, and your bishop can't attack anything. Black doesn't have any pressure here. So this is just a winning strategically for white. Black is just defending and has no hope. White picks up a pawn. White picks up another pawn. Talia doesn't have a lot of time on her clock. Yeah, it was just like a total crush. Then black resigned because black's down 3 pawns, and white's going to play f6 and rook h8 mate the next 2 moves. So very nice game from Carissa, totally outclassing her opponent, basically taking a very slightly better position and just making it look like it was easy Probably because it was easy. The last game was actually going on while I started streaming, and I'm sure it's ended by now. It's the game between Tatev and Alice Lee. Alice Lee, not ridiculous. And their game was basically equal the whole game. Although I don't know if the game ended in a draw, because I don't know how the game ended. But I'm going to find out. Okay, the engine says white is very slightly better. Slightly. Now it says it's equal, because white played bishop e3, bishop g5. Doesn't make a lot of sense. And this is just equal position. Nobody's better. Very high level game, very well played. Nobody's better here. So better player could win, but better player doesn't necessarily win. And white takes some pawns, and black says, I'm going to get your bishop, and the engine says it's all equal. And even though in this position, now it says black is close to winning, even though white has so many pawns. And that's a blunder. Black needed to play queen e7, defending the knight and defending her e-pawn. And she was in time trouble here and played queen b7, which leads to a draw and ending after rook e5. So black had good winning chances with queen e7 by outplaying her opponent. And then she played queen here, and now it's just a draw. And black can't win the endgame because white's pawns are too strong. It just says it's a draw. Nobody can win. Black plays for the win. Now king f1 is the only drawing move, and she played it. And then this is where the game was when I started streaming. So let's look at the end of the game. Okay, so they went, sorry, the H file's cut off. Maybe I can get rid of that, or I can't. Okay, well, H file's cut off, but that's okay. Queen H1 check. They're just repeating. Yeah, this is just a draw. And they traded everything and repeated. So they drew about 6 moves after we stopped looking at it. So interesting game. No H file, still a draw. Don't even need an H file to draw. Although both players do have H pawns. Okay, so let's talk about the standings in the event. Okay, so Tokhirjonova, Yip, and Atwell have 1. Zatonskih, Nazi, and Talia have 0. And Krush, Atusa, Tatev, Jennifer Yu, Megan, and Alice Lees have half a point in the U.S. Women's Championship. Now, in the U.S. Championship, all 12 players have half a point. The pairings for tomorrow: Fabiano's white against Levon, Sam Sevian's white against Ray Robson, Wesley So's white against Christopher Yu, Oparin is white against Mishra. A Wonder is white against Hans. And Dominguez is white against Shankland. Those are the pairings for tomorrow's games. And for the women's championship, Alice Lee is white against Talia. Tatev is white against Nazi. Rose Atwell is white against Carissa Yip. They're tied for first. Krush is white against Megan Lee. Tokhirjonova is white against Porkashian. And Jennifer Yu's white against Anna Zatonskih. And those are the pairings for tomorrow. So hopefully you enjoy those games tomorrow. Also, if you're looking for chess lessons, you got two options. I'm taking more students now. So contact me or Karen in the chat or by email. And also my good friend Aviv Friedman needs more students. He's a FIDE master. He's a FIDE senior trainer. And for the last 30 years, he's been the head of delegation or the coach to the World Youth, World Cadet, and Pan Am Youth Championships. So he's used to coaching high-rated, talented young players and everybody else. So if you want private lessons, there's Aviv. You can type !Aviv. In fact, I'll do it. And if you want lessons from me, they're more expensive, but the more you pay, the more you learn. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that game analysis. I know I did. And it's time to raid somebody. We raided Chess Bra yesterday, so I guess we'll do Elena today. Okay, and I'll see you guys tomorrow, 6:30. I'll be playing subs, like I usually do, Sub Saturday. And even more important, for tomorrow, don't forget